And welcome, Jane Velez Mitchell. We are very honored to have today here on Jane Unchained an incredible guest, Rachel Dreskin, who is the USA Director of Compassion in World Farming. And Rachel, we're talking chickens. Now, our mascot here is little Rico. We all know we love our dogs and cats, but we apparently in America and around the Western world regard chickens as somehow a vegetable or wings that fall from the sky. And your organization, Compassionate World Farming, has focused in on the fact that 95% of all the animals humans consume are chickens. Tell us why that is such, well, it's obviously a horrifying number, but what can be done about it? What are you doing about it?
Yes, so that's right, Jane. 95% of all factory farmed animals in the United States are meat chickens that the industry calls broiler chickens. And that's a really staggering number. When I started working in this area, I couldn't believe it. 95% in the US alone, that is 9 billion animals, chickens, meat chickens that are raised and slaughtered each year in this country. Globally, the number is around 50 billion and each year. And at any one point in time, there are about 23 billion chickens alive and being raised for their meat. It's really an incredible number. And because of the sheer scale of it, compassionate farming in the US has really focused very squarely on improving the lives of these animals because they do have the capacity to suffer quite tremendously. And the broiler industry, the meat chicken industry, has changed significantly over the past several decades. Since the 1950s or so, there have been, quote unquote, tremendous advancements that the industry has made in regard to the genetics of these birds. So prior to that point in time, it took a bird about several months to reach a weight of around 2.5 pounds. Now what we have are chickens that will grow to over 5 pounds in as little as 6 weeks or just over 6 weeks. So the industry basically has created chickens that grow extremely big, extremely fast on this quest for efficiency. And a consequence of that, and this was, I do believe it was an unintended consequence. Nobody set out to create chickens that inherently suffer as a result of their genetics, but that's what has happened. So we have these birds that just because of the genetics that they're born with, they suffer tremendously. So compassionate farming focuses very, very squarely on improving the lives for these many animals that exist in the food system.
Well, to look at this from a positive perspective, if we woke people up to the fact that chickens are beings that feel, that had mothers, that want to live just as much as we do. If we woke people up to that whole idea that chickens are individuals, we could eliminate 95% of all the animal slaughter. You know, I'm thinking of that horrible Chick-fil-A advertising campaign where they have billboards where they have a cow writing in misspelled, "Eat more chicken," essentially. And we invite Chick-fil-A on any time. Unfortunately, for chickens, Chick-fil-A is booming. They're opening up all over the place. There's 2 that opened up near where I live. It seems like there's sort of this campaign to say that, and I've even had people come up to me and say, "Oh, I'm a vegetarian, I just eat chicken." There is this complete disconnect. Now, I think thanks to incredible work of your organization and many other organizations, people are starting to realize, and the SAVE movement, for example, that, oh my God, pigs have a higher IQ than little Rico here. Sorry about that, mister. Pigs have the emotional and intellectual development of toddler humans. Thanks to work of organizations like the Rowdy Girl Sanctuary, a cattle ranch turned into a vegan animal sanctuary. People are starting to understand that cows are just like our dogs and cats, and they have hearts and they form communities and they even have babysitters. Renee King Sonnen describes the amazing, incredible social connections that cows form. And people are starting to pick up on that. But chickens, it's almost as if they feel that they are objects and not individuals. So what can we do to change that? What are you doing to change that?
Yes, it's so true that we have, I think people in general have thought about chickens as just not as sentient beings. We're starting to recognize, as you said, that cows and pigs are actually very smart and they have the capacity to feel pain and to suffer. We're not fully there with chickens yet. I think we are getting closer. And when we started working in the US back in 2011, and we decided we were going to focus on chickens and improving the lives for as many of these 9 billion chickens as we possibly can, we decided we were going to work with food companies to do that because they have so much control over our food system. And when we started talking with food companies, they were saying, some of them were saying to us, we understand, like we recognize now that the science concretely says that chickens are sentient beings. And we recognize that they are suffering because of their genetics and because of the environment that they are in. However, there is no public outcry. We're saying we have no leverage to be able to create policies that help these animals because the public is not aware of this problem. So that's something that we recognized really early on this journey and set out to figure out how can we raise awareness around chicken sentience and chicken welfare amongst the public. And one of the things that we did kind of early on in our journey here in the US is we actually partnered with a farmer, a chicken farmer by the name of Craig Watts. And he was at the time a contract farmer for Purdue. And he was not happy with the way that he was being forced to raise these birds. And he saw that they do not, in fact, have good welfare. They do suffer. So he actually invited us, Compassionate Farming, an animal protection organization, into his barn to film what was going on with the birds. So we brought a professional film crew. This was not an undercover investigation. This was a farmer inviting us in and saying, yes, please show the public what's going on. Please show the public that these are sentient beings and please show them that they're suffering and we need to reform the system. And that was a really powerful video that we put out because this wasn't animal advocates shouting from the inside. This was animal advocates who were standing shoulder to shoulder with a farmer saying, we need to team up and we need to work together to raise awareness around this issue and help these animals. And that was back in 2014. And it was thankfully was covered by Nicholas Kristof in the New York Times and was picked up by many different outlets. And that kind of and a lot of different media outlets started to also like independently writing about chicken and chicken welfare. And we have a long ways to go, but I do think that helped to start the conversation and start raising awareness and really helped for us lay the groundwork to be able to do work with food companies to create really comprehensive and meaningful policies to improve chickens' lives.
Well, let me say this. I was at an event actually going to a veg fest in Hilton Head on the East Coast. And I was at a hotel and this very nice lady, otherwise nice lady, was sort of promoting to this new man who this couple had come up and she was touting her hotel and the place she worked. And she said, and we have this and we have swimming pools and we have lounges and we have wings and we have wings. If you want wings. And so she was trying to sort of encourage them to enjoy the facility. And after they walked off, I walked up to her and I said, you know, you mentioned that you have wings. Did you think about where those wings came from? That those are birds and that those wings belong to those birds and that those wings didn't fall from the sky. And you're basically giving away somebody else's wings, that they're actually part of an animal. And she really looked at me like her eyes popped out, like I was out of my mind. And then she thought about it for a second and she said, well, I eat meat. And I said, well, I just want you to think about it. The reason I say this is the word wings. We had a restaurant down the block here that just said the giant word wings, as if Americans now have this concept that wings exist in and of themselves, that they're not part of a chicken who lived a horrible life and died a horrible death. And so I envision a campaign around basically not your wings. These wings have been so disembodied from where they've come from that they're actually the body part of an animal, that people are just like, there's restaurants that just say wings. Now, I eat buffalo cauliflower wings at vegan restaurants that are absolutely delicious. And primarily when you're eating wings, what you're eating, you're enjoying the savory dressing on them, whether it's a hot sauce or a chipotle, whatever it is. That's what, that and the consistency is what makes the wing. And we all know, who, those of us who are vegan, that a lot of top vegan restaurants offer buffalo cauliflower wings that are delicious. And frankly, we've given them to meat eaters. I don't even like to say meat eaters anymore. I say animal eaters. We give them to animal eaters and say, here, is this such a sacrifice to eat this buffalo wing as opposed to the wing of an animal that had a heart, that had eyes, that had a personality? And they'll taste it and say, this is delicious. So what can we do as a culture to make people aware that wings, which seems to be one of the main ways that people are consuming chicken these days, you know, the Super Bowl wings, it's almost as if you can't have the Super Bowl without having, I don't know how many millions of chickens' wings ripped from their bodies. What can we do to have a campaign to wake people up with a hashtag? I mean, I'm thinking not my wings, you know, but that wake people up. I am not a nugget. Not a nugget was a PETA campaign that they did that I think, you know, got a lot of traction. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a really interesting idea, and it's something that we have so far to go because people are so disconnected from how their food got on their plate. And you're right, when people are eating chicken nuggets or they're eating a hamburger, oftentimes it's not they're eating an animal. It's just a burger. And I think that for us being able to really share it and raise awareness around that the food on your plate, if it's an animal product, it actually came from a living animal that had the capacity to feel pain and to suffer, is really important. It's really important for organizations, for NGOs like Compassionate Farming and other groups to be continuing to raise awareness. And it's really important, I think, for everybody out there to help share that message as well, and get involved with organizations and share on your social media. And there is a long way to go in that regard. I also think that there strangely could be some kind of opportunity with moving towards more plant-based foods because of this dissonance that we have with how the food gets on our plate. Because as you said, when people are trying a cauliflower wing, oftentimes the response is very positive. Oh, this tastes very good. And people are not tied to actually eating something from an animal. They just want to eat that particular kind of food. And I think that's why we're seeing so much success with some of the plant-based alternatives that are coming onto the market that do kind of replicate animal products, like the Beyond Meat burger, like the Impossible burger. We're seeing people are very readily making the shift and interested in making the shift, because a burger, I don't think necessarily has to come from a cow. They just want it to look and taste like what they're accustomed to.
Well, I'm thrilled with all the positive developments that are occurring, and I want to see more of them. But is the consumption of chicken going down? Because one of the things that is sort of like, we are seeing all these vegan restaurants pop up all over the world, everywhere. I use the example of, I was in Salt Lake City, didn't think of it as a hotbed of veganism. There are at least six incredible, I'm talking about some of the best tasting food I've ever had, vegan restaurants in Salt Lake City. It's happening from Berlin to Latin America, from Puerto Rico to Texas. But are the numbers going down? Because one of the things that people pointed out is the numbers of animals being killed doesn't appear to be going down because the number of chickens is increasing while people may be reducing the number of cows and pigs they're eating. And this is why I think the chicken issue is so crucial. If we got people to wake up about eating chickens, we could see literally a 95% drop in animal consumption, and we've hit the tipping point.
Yes, yes, we have seen a decline in the consumption of beef. Consumption of dairy is going down. However, yes, sadly, the consumption of chicken products is not going down. It's actually been stagnant or increasing. And that's really concerning. And it's something that we are looking into and working with food companies on, actually, to reduce the total number of animals in their supply chains. Because while we're looking at improving the living conditions for the animals who are still trapped in factory farm systems right now, and the impact of that has really been tremendous in reducing suffering, in that we have seen, since we've been working with food companies, we've seen a billion animals that are set to live better lives because of those policies. At the same time, we have seen 10 billion new animals enter the system. And that is a number that we simply can't ignore. And you're right, that is largely because of chickens, new chickens that are entering the systems. So something that we are working on now in the United States is working with companies on our, we're calling our 25 by 25 program. And the goal is to reduce the total number of animals in supply chains by 25% by the year 2025. And we're partnering with companies on this initiative, and for them to look at reducing the total number, and not just, the volume of animal products, but the numbers of animals, so that we can get the numbers of chicken and also fish in their supply chains down. And looking at doing that through a number of creative solutions, whether that be through offering more plant-based alternatives, whether that be through offering blended products, through reducing food waste, making the labeling of plant-based products or plant-based menu items more appealing, making sure that we have plant-based items on the shelves next to the meat, the meat product, so that it's more appealing and accessible.
Well, Summer Stan says maybe people are letting go of red meat and feel chicken is better for them while they're going through this vegan health awareness or transition. And that's another problem, is that somehow chicken has been associated with health or diet. Can you address that?
Yeah, that is something else that we're contending with. And actually, some of the issues that I was talking about earlier with the changes in how chickens are bred and their genetics are actually impacting the nutritional quality of chicken as well. So one of the issues that we're seeing because of the way that chickens are bred is there's higher incidence of issues like white striping. And white striping is something that I'm sure many people have actually seen this, even if you don't eat meat in the grocery stores, but chicken breasts can have actually white stripes on the breast meat. It's a very common thing. And what that is, it's a muscular disorder that results from the